Hello everybody, this is Freddy with FreddyCanFly, and in today's video we are going to begin the Setup Wizard series for the Spirit Wave radio system. If you guys have been following along, I've put out a couple videos prior to this one talking about things such as setting up your gimbals, doing the installation, and doing the binding. So it's safe to say that up until this point, if you are watching this video, we are now ready to go ahead and program and set up the machine. Real quick thing to point out, guys, before we proceed anywhere is you want to make sure that your both Spirit Wave transmitter and also whichever the flybarless system that you're using is currently up to the latest firmware update. And the reason I kind of stumbled there for a quick second is in the event that you're not using a Spirit system, that could also vary. But you're going to want to make sure that your Wave system, all in itself, is the current and up to date. If you guys don't know how to do that, or you're curious on how to do that, watch my previous videos. I talk about how to go through the update process. It's super simple. It's literally you just open up the updates menu and click on live update. So I'll be using the Spirit W1 or Wave 1 flybarless unit for the rest of this series, as I've also been using in the prior segments. So I went ahead and made sure that that was fully up to date, and also did the same in my Spirit Wave. I just wanted to address that real quick, guys. That way there was no mistakes as we go along the process, because they added some new menus and things like that. So also, if you're watching this video further into the future, please disregard that message, because chances are when you purchased your Wave and received everything, it's probably up to date, or doesn't quite need all those additional features in order to function. So anyways, at this point in time, guys, we're going to go ahead. We'll jump in. We'll start the setup series, the setup wizard, as it's called. Super simple, super easy, guys. I don't think I've actually ever been able to make it through a full program on the bench of an entire model within such a short window of time. So it's really user friendly. This will be great for beginners, mid-level, and even those advanced guys out there. I mean, you can just blow right through this in a matter of minutes, hit the field, get out, and have a good time. So let's go ahead and jump into the Setup Wizard series for the Spirit Wave radio. Alrighty, guys, so the first thing we're going to want to do, obviously, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to power up our Spirit system. Let's make sure that everything's working and accurate. Again, as said in the previous segment, you should be bound successfully and updated successfully. If not, please see the corresponding videos. But moving forward here, in our Spirit interface, so to speak, we're going to want to go into our model setup. We'll push here. There we go. And you'll notice right now everything's completely disabled. That's not going to actually enable until we go ahead and plug in our model. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and let's power up. Now, guys, please, for the sake of both safety and proper setup, I'm going to highly encourage that you have your motor unplugged. If not, if it's not installed at this time, don't worry about it. You can unplug 2 of the 3 motor wires, or just all 3. Be as safe as humanly possible. Get that done. And then you'll also notice on my model here that I've uninstalled the main rotor and the mixing setup. We're going to need to do that so that we can, of course, level our Swashplate and make sure we have the appropriate travel. We'll talk about that a little bit more moving forward. But if you're at this current state in the setup wizard or programming process, so to speak, go ahead and make sure that you remove the main rotor hub and go ahead and disconnect your motor wires. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to power up here. You'll hear it do all of its signals and all of its tones. Now, for the sake of video purposes, guys, I've already went through and set up this several times to learn and understand the system appropriately. If you have not done so up until this point, of course, hence why you're watching this video, I'm going to highly recommend that you either A, have your servo arms detached from your servos, or you could have your servo horns installed but detach your link rods. The reason I say servo horns is because as we go through the setup process, if your servo's 90 in a specific way and you've got your servo horns on and the ball attached and all of a sudden the servo rips to the left or right, it could interact with the case or other objects and cause servo binding, and now you got a potential failure and you're not having a good time. Okay, so even though I'm not displaying it for you, it might be a good idea at this point to have your servo arms detached. Okay, so anyways, we're bound successfully. Okay, we're in the main menu on the Spirit Wave. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to enter into the setup wizard. Okay, in order to do so, all you're going to want to do is go over to your model, enter into your menu. I almost said model select, sorry. Your model setup, and you'll notice now everything is active. Okay, that's because we're bound to the Spirit W1 system at this point in time. So if we jump right over here into our base setup, you'll notice we've got an option for setup wizard. So I'm going to click on setup wizard. And guys, this is so user friendly. It almost talks you through it without verbalizing it. So it's letting you know that we're going to need a Swashplate leveling tool, which absolutely yes. On any maker model, make sure that you've got a proper leveling tool. And also we're going to need a pitch gauge. I'm going to be using the digital pitch gauge. I haven't seen I guess you could call it an auxiliary pitch gauge. I haven't seen one of those in a hot minute, but we'll be using our pitch gauge. Make sure you guys have one of those. Okay, we're going to need it. Now, in order to proceed forward, another good quick tip, guys, is even though your motor should be unplugged and disengaged, it doesn't also hurt to have your throttle hold engaged. You'll notice right there, mine goes from normal to RPM hold or throttle hold, so to speak. Okay, if the motor's off, you shouldn't have to worry about it, but it's always a good precautionary method. So, anyways, let's go ahead and begin the setup wizard process. All right, so all you got to do is swipe over. So the first step, okay, it's reading that it wants us to remove the rotor head. Check, we've done that. Obviously, if the rotor head's removed, we shouldn't have the main rotors on there. And then we went through how to mount and bind in a previous segment. So please make sure that it is mounted correctly. I will recommend that you use the supplied double-sided mounting foam. And then you'll notice right over here, it gives us the option of our model size. I'm going to go ahead and mine's technically a 550. So I'm going to choose the bigger of the two and I'll select 600. Please go ahead and choose yours accordingly. Once done, just simply swipe right over. It's going to ask us about the mounting orientation for said flybarless system. Again, I'm using the W1, and I've covered this in a previous topic, so go ahead and select yours accordingly. Mine is mounted in the horizontal 180-degree position. You'll notice, though, on these little pictures, it kind of gives you a designated arrow, whether it's facing forward or backwards, and that's referring to pins facing forward or backwards. Okay, so select this one accordingly. Again, if you need to pull up the manual to help you look at all the different orientations and everything, you can absolutely do so, but this one's pretty basic. It's elementary, so just select your orientation. Let's go ahead and scroll over. Now it says select Swashplate type of the model. Of course, you want to pay attention to the correct orientation. Now, the Swashplate orientation actually is a big one because there are models out there where the anti-rotation pin is facing forward, and in some models, the anti-rotation pin is facing backwards. Take careful note of that, okay, guys, and make sure you select this one accordingly. Again, it's kind of rudimentary. I mean, you should know these things if you're this far into RC helicopter stuff. So let's go ahead. We shouldn't have to spend too much time on this. It indicates over here with a little arrow, you know, with the nose of the heli facing forward. So that one is a pretty easy menu. This one here, very important, okay? If you do not know the specs on your servos that you're using, look them up and go ahead and select the appropriate categories. In this case, mine's using a 1520 for my cyclics, and it'll be using the 760 for the rudder. This is an important menu because you don't want to have any servo failures. Okay, so select this one accordingly. I'll say it once more. If you do not know or you're unsure, stop what you're doing. Don't proceed forward. Look up the right specs, guys. And we're already almost halfway done. This is so easy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and swipe over to the next menu. Your frequencies, again, I shouldn't have to continuously re-say it, but I will say it. This is very important so you don't avoid servo failures, disconnects, overheats, so forth and so on. It does specify on here to make sure to set the highest possible frequency. Again, guys, if you need to consult your manufacturer or make and model of your servos, please do so beforehand. You'll notice mine are all running the 333 Hertz setting. So let's go ahead and swipe over. Now we're getting into the business here. Now so it says in here to go ahead at this time to connect servos according to the show diagram. Tel servo is going to be in your channel 4, so obviously your other cyclic servos will be in 1, 2, and 3. I plugged all my servos in prior to doing all this, hence why we removed the servo arms to avoid any potential interactions. Super simple. I'm not going to install the servo arms yet, mind you. We're going to do that here in just a moment. Again, mine are already pre-installed because I've went through the setup process. So everything looks good here. Let's go ahead and proceed to the next menu. Now things are going to get a little bit more interesting at this point, and we're going to actually have the ability to interact with the machine. It specifies in this menu to go ahead and reverse servos so they're moving up and down in the same direction as collective pitch stick. Depending upon what mode you're using, whether you're a mode 1 or mode 2, in my particular case, I'm going to be collective on the left stick. Okay, so essentially what it's asking, guys, is when you move your collective, I went to go and spool up. Let's put it back into hold. When you move your collective, it's asking you to reverse your servo features here so that everything moves up and down together. Now, it doesn't matter if they're moving up and down in correspondence with the stick movement. So let's say, for example, if you move up, but everything moves together, but it moves down, that is fine. We can reverse that feature. I found for the most appropriate setup, what we're going to kind of be looking for is there should be the odd man out. It's kind of a rule I follow with a lot of this stuff. So we're looking for the odd man out. In my particular case, it was channel 2. So what I did was I moved my collective up and down, and I found which 2 servos were working together and which 1 servo was working against the others. Again, disregarding whether they were working together in the wrong direction or not, the important part is they were working together. Okay, so hopefully I'm explaining that in a manner that works. Go ahead and move your collective and reverse your said servo channels as needed. Honestly, you should not have to reverse more than 1, if not any. So in my case, I ended up just reversing channel number 2 here. And as you can see demonstrated, everything is working together, okay? Now you might be asking yourself, well, hey, I don't have my servo arms on, right? If you gotta just temporarily set them into place, you know, you don't have to fasten down your screws and Loctite and do all that stuff, but you can set them into place just to get a good a visual readout, okay? So let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next menu. Now you're going to hear a click. Hopefully you were able to pick that up on the audio. in this particular menu, your collective is actually disabled, and the spirit system is going to manually center all of your servos. This is the point in time that we're going to actually put our servo horns on and cement them down, and from there forward, based upon the gearing and the splines, we'll go ahead and apply our electronic subtrims. Okay, so this step's super easy, super simple. It's already got you at a dead center, or what I consider to be your neutral position for the machine, half stick, half collective. There's a lot of terminology floating around out there, okay? So what you would want to do, guys, is we're going to do the odd man out, is what I call this. I'm going to pick just one servo. It does not matter which one. Pick any one. I usually pick the most readily accessible one. On this particular model that I'm flying now, my two front end servos are readily accessible. The elevator in the back, it's kind of a pain to get to. So I'm going to pick one servo, take my servo horn, and I'm going to position it on there as close to 90 degrees as humanly possible. Okay? If it's dead on, great. If it's slightly off, also great. But just get it as close as humanly possible. Typically, I have found amongst your three different odds, there's always one servo that's almost completely dead 90, at least mechanical. So place your servo horn on, and then what we're going to do from there, we're going to pick our one servo, and we're going to make that bad boy the most perfect 90 humanly possible. You can do so by selecting each individual servo, and when you do, you'll notice you get a little menu pop up over here. You can then scroll up or down to induce a positive or negative effect on the movement to get it to that perfect 90. Once you have it, you can just touch anywhere on screen and it'll disappear. The reason why we're going to select just one servo and make it the most perfect 90 is because we're going to utilize that information to make our other two servos a perfect 90 with our main servo, okay? And the way we're going to do that and accomplish that is you're going to want to make sure that all three of your linkage rods are exactly identical per the manufacturer specifications. And then all we have to do from there, guys, is you're going to go ahead and get out your Swashplate leveling tool, as we talked about previously, and you'll set it on the Swashplate. There we go. And this is how easy it is to get a perfect Swashplate, you guys, okay? So we've got our control servo that has the perfect 90 mechanical, and we went ahead and if we go in and select that servo, we can add any electronical subtrims as needed to get that perfect 90. Now, after that is done, all you have to do is take your other two servos. Maybe one's high, maybe one's low, you know, maybe they're both low, they're both high, whatever the case is. We will no longer adjust our controlled servo. We know it's perfect, we know it's flawless, don't stress about it. So we're going to put our swash leveling tool on, and at this time we're not going to adjust any link rods because we did this already with our calipers. We made sure they were to the manufactured specifications. If you know they need to be slightly longer or slightly shorter, that's up to you. But all we're going to do is we're going to click on one servo at a time, and you're going to adjust it until it meets your perfect servo per the readout on your swash leveling tool, of course. Okay, so I guess the way I can make that make sense is let's say that servo number, let's say, which one is this? Servo number 3. Let's say this is the one that I used. Obviously, you can see it's got the least amount of subtrim. This is the one that I used for my perfect 90. So let's go with servo number 1. You can see that it's got a 30% added to it. So if I were to back that down to 0, you're going to see that the servo is going to drop down. So using my key servo, I went in and I applied the electronic subtrims until it met my Swashplate leveling tool exact. Left it alone, and then I went over to my back end servo, which is my elevator or channel 2, and I repeated that exact same process. I added or subtracted electronical subtrim until it met my Swashplate tool exactly. Now, all three of my servos in conjunction with my main servo should be on the exact same plane. And if all three of my linkages are, again, use your digital calipers, are adjusted to the manufactured specifications or whatever length that you chose, and they're all even, in theory, we should have a perfectly level, neutral setup, okay? So guys, get that step done. Very simple, very straightforward. From this point, we can proceed forward. We're going to go ahead and swipe over. And this is where things are going to get a little bit more interesting. Now, this menu I found that I did not use whatsoever, because if we found our mechanical center, you'll notice that we now have access to move. But what it's saying is if we need to position the Swashplate higher or lower, we can do so, but also in doing so, I feel like it's going to offset our 90. So I'm going to leave this menu alone. It may apply to other situations, different makes, different models, maybe even different applications. But in my particular scenario, I don't need to make any adjustments here. Okay, so I'm going to leave this menu alone. Now, this is where it's going to get important, guys. At this point in time, we're going to take a quick break. It's not going to exit your menus or anything, but we're going to go ahead and install the main rotor. Go ahead and connect your mixing arms and your pitch link arms, and then we're going to come back and we're going to set up our collective pitch ranges.